Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Please be upstanding for the chairman.
Well, welcome to the annual council meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone tonight to the meeting and remind you all that tonight's meeting is being webcast. Can members please ensure they speak into the microphone because it's a new system and apparently you've got to get quite close to it, so that can be heard on the webcast. So if I may start by making a sincere apology, because tonight I haven't been able to find a vicar or somebody to say some prayers tonight. And unfortunately, my first vicar, Mark Bailey, had a PCC meeting, and my spare vicar went down with COVID yesterday, and I've tried dial-up vicar, but I couldn't find one. So apologies. So we'll just have to remember what he said last time. So if I haven't lost them. There we go. Now this is chairman's announcements, which is basically to remind you and tell everybody what has been happening over the last year in my year of office. So as my civic year draws to its conclusion, I hand over the chairmanship with some reluctance, as it's been an interesting adventure with several highlights. Now, during my year, I was determined to promote and support charities, clubs, businesses, schools, and sports organisations within East Hertfordshire. And the post-pandemic resurgence of invitations and opportunities to do just that has been encouraging, but nowhere near the levels of pre-COVID activity. Pleasingly, we reached out to memorable events such as the Holocaust Day, which Councillor Jonathan Kay organised. School awards ceremonies, the official opening of new premises, particularly the one in Mead Lane in Hertford for Hills, the Hertfordshire Independent Living Service, in their new facility, which is truly excellent. There were numerous speaking engagements and to talk about East Herts Council. Now, another highlight on the 28th of April was an organised visit by 8 Moldovan mayors and their officials that I hosted here at East Herts. And East Herts was chosen by a gentleman called Andrew Young, who spent the last decade visiting Moldova, trying to install democratic processes. Now, they were here to learn about democracy and how we go about it as they endeavor to break away from Russian control as a puppet state that borders Ukraine. Now, I spent 2.5 hours with them here and showed them most aspects of our processes, including planning, housing, and licensing, and mainly democratic services and our voting methods. Now, all lead officers presented to the visiting group, and frankly, our guests were hugely impressed, as it was beyond their totalitarian style of state management. And I'm so grateful to the officers who fully engaged with Moldovan guests, and I hope Richard Cassidy can extend our thanks to the lead officers for that. Now, I know our frustrations with democracy, the democratic system in this country, which often delays decision making. But when you hear the alternatives, such as in Moldova, we must value and cherish what we have to protect our freedoms. The COVID recovery scheme from central government funding provided an opportunity for this council to support new and expanding businesses in East Hertfordshire, and it was for this council to distribute that money, probably about 240,000 from central government. Both Vice Chairman in Devonshire and I saw firsthand by visiting some 30 out of potentially 50 of these businesses who found East Herts a good place to locate to, and with this financial support, ride out their difficult trading positions over the last couple of years. And these businesses were very complimentary that this council showed such interest and support, which hopefully will be repaid manyfold when they grow, employ more people, and pay large amounts of council tax. Now, I cannot speak highly enough of the two officers in particular who arranged and accompanied us. I see that Lindsay's not here. She was going to be here, but between her and Ben Wood, they really do deserve to be thanked tonight for their help and their valuable assistance in facilitating these visits. My charity this year, excuse me, was Macmillan Cancer Support, a cause I was happy to support as I've lost several close friends recently to this evil disease, and Macmillan were there when they were needed. So thank you to those councillors who joined 120 guests for my quiz night at Cottred Community Hall, a fabulous facility. And a team from Walken that were the brainiest, as they were from my ward. They would be, wouldn't they? Because they helped elect me as their councillor. The second event, I was determined to concentrate on inviting only guests from East Hertfordshire, and that was to the wonderful Henry Moore Foundation at Perry Green, and the Vice Lord Lieutenant Richard Beasley and the High Sheriff Sally Burton were there for East Herts Council to thank all parish and town councillors and their clerks for their often unappreciated service that they gave and give to their parishes and their towns. So I believe it was a popular and appreciated garden party. Now I'm pleased to say that this year, that due to the generosity of so many people, I've managed to raise £3,852 for charity. I'd like to thank Esther Piper for her work as the chairman's PA as we enter the new civic year. I'm sure we'll all look forward to the resumption of the normality of staff returning to more office working in line with most other customer serving businesses, not only for staff training and morale, but for our communication with residents. Throughout the whole year, I've had the full support of the Vice Chairman, Ian Devonshire, who willingly covered the several events when they clashed or they were more relevant, closer to his excuse me, ward. His humour, his friendship and commitment to his responsibility towards his council duties made him a pleasure to work with. Don't let his apparent light touch and boyish good looks detract from his steely resolve. As an astute businessman and someone who has much to offer as a councillor. Hopefully members tonight will involve a future chairman to represent this council more extensively and to support you in your wards right across this lovely district. So as I conclude, councillors, thank you for permitting me to serve this council for the second term of office, which I valued and enjoyed enormously more on this occasion, this second occasion, as I've had the previous experience, it gave me a better appreciation and understanding of my duties and responsibilities. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sorry, Chairman, would you mind if I interrupted proceedings for a minute?
Please do.
Always a privilege. And I just wanted to say thank you, really, for what you have given to the community in the last year. I've been trying to think of the words to use for you, all right?
He's got a few.
He's got a few, absolutely. But I think the words that have come to mind is you always look very dapper. The photographs that have come out of you have made you look very professional and exactly portraying the role which you have been so good at doing. I think the other thing is you have been very brave. Last time when you were chairman, you held a garden party for residents or for town and parish councillors in the garden of a friend of ours who, as you know, we both know, very sadly passed away. But I think, again, you were brave enough to do exactly the same thing in the Henry Moore Foundation. And I think the number of parish councillors who came up to me and said how grateful they were that you had done that, you know, rather than have another chicken dinner, I think that shows a great deal of bravery on your part to just break away slightly so that we as a district can say thank you to the town and parish councillors who really are some of the foot soldiers for all the work that has to be done right at the community, and particularly over the last 2 years. Without our town and parishes and the work that they have done, I think a lot of our communities would really have suffered because of COVID. And I think the other thing is, you mentioned it yourself about Ian, but I would say exactly the same thing. You have an extraordinary witty sense of humour.
Oh, really?
And most of the time it just sort of slides under and you have to think about what you said, but then you think that was very, very funny. And so thank you for your service with us last year, and enjoy your retirement with Lindy. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Leader. That's very nice. How nice. Oh, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to echo some of the words which our leader has offered. And on behalf of Liberal Democrats, I'd like to say thank you very much for all your hard work and all your efforts on behalf of this council and the community during your term of office. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsmith. It's very nice for you to say that. Thank you. Right, well, we move on to the sad bit. Whereas I hand over, don't I? Oh, I've got to do apologies. Are there apologies, please, Katie?
Yes. We've received apologies for absence from Councillor Andrews, Councillor Beckett, Councillor Frecknell, Councillor Hall, Councillor Hollybon, Councillor McMullen, Councillor Newton, Councillor Snowden and Councillor Ward Booth.
Are there any other apologies, please? No, there are not. Yes, we're Councillor Wiley.
So, Chairman, it's just to say Councillor Rowley is on his way.
Thank you. Right, well, then we move on to the exciting bit. I was going to say a sad bit, but it's an interesting time. Do we have apologies for I've done that, and now we you can see I'm all over the place because this is actually quite dramatic, really. Do we have any nominations for the election of a chairman, please, for this council? Yes, Councillor Hazy.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, I mean, if I may say so, we don't really want to run the council this meeting twice. It all gets a bit like Groundhog Day, doesn't it? If we go back over each of the agenda items, but that's doesn't matter. I would very much, I'm very honoured to propose Councillor Ian Devonshire. Ian has been, I know, an excellent deputy to you, and I know that he will be an excellent replacement. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder, please? Thank you. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Chairman. I am delighted to second the proposal for Councillor Devonshire to be chairman for our next civic year. I have no doubt he will fulfil the role with his usual vim and vigour.
Well, thank you. Are there any other nominations? Right, may we have a show of hands, please, to appoint Councillor Devonshire as the next chairman of this council, please. I think that's unanimous. Thank you. Well, there we are. Are there any objections? And are there any abstentions? No. So it's unanimous. So that's carried. So, Ian, congratulations. Thank you. I need to hand over this chain to you after you remove that one. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well done. Clear off now, don't I? Well, I clear off at this point. Yeah. Now it's yours to sign one later.
Right, I need to read the declaration now. I, Ian Devonshire, having been elected to the office of Chairman of East Hertfordshire District Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. Okay, thank you. Right, my first duty is to elect a vice chairman. So do we have any nominations for vice chairman, please? Yes, Councillor Goody.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to propose Councillor Rosemary Bolton.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Rutland Barsby.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. And may I congratulate you and wish you a very good year.
Thank you.
I would like to second the nomination of Councillor Rosemary Bolton. She will be excellent.
Okay, members, can we have a show of hands as to whether you're in favour, against or abstain? All those in favour, please. I think that's unanimous. Are there any against or abstain? No? Okay. So, Councillor Bolton, do you want to join me up here?
I, Rosemary Bolton, having been elected to the office of Vice Chairman of East Hertfordshire District Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability.
Okay, thank you. I've got some chairman's announcements as well. Firstly, I would like to thank Ken. It's been a real pleasure being his vice chairman. I like to think of Ken as not just a fellow councillor, but also as a good friend. Any of you know that Ken, you'll know he has a wicked sense of humour. Thank you for all your help, advice and support over the last year. Thank you, Ken. I'm also very much looking forward to working with Rosemary as my vice chairman this coming year, and I congratulate her on being elected vice chairman. For my upcoming year, I've already started to organise some events, so I would really appreciate it if you could just make a note of these in your diaries. Sunday the 10th of July, I'm having a civic service at 6:30 p.m. at St Andrew's Church in Much Haddon. This is an evening service. I've deliberately chosen an evening service so that all denominations can attend, and indeed people of no faith can attend as well. Everybody is welcome. After the service, there will be refreshments outside, and I'm hoping, because it's the beginning of July, it'll be a nice evening that we can stand out on the lawns and have some refreshments. St Andrew's Church in my village is 802 years old this year, so there's a huge amount of history there. So that's the first event. The second event, on Friday the 23rd of September, I'm having a fundraising event for my chosen charity, which a lot of you know is going to be the Stroke Association. We're going to be talking about this in a minute. This is probably going to be a race night, but I'll give you some more details near the time. And it's going to be at the same venue as Ken had his event. That's the Henry Moore Foundation Studios. Once again, there'll be food, drinks, but the main part of this evening is for everybody to really let their hair down and have a bit of fun, especially after the last 2 years where we've been restricted in what we can do. This year, as you all know, is the Queen's 70th Jubilee celebration, so I'll be attending several events associated with this, including some beacon lighting events. Now, going on to my charity, I've asked the Chair of Trustees for my chosen charity, Mr. Stephen King, to give you a brief introduction as to what this charity does. So I shall now, if you'll allow me, I'll just allow Stephen to take over for about 5 minutes just to tell you a little bit about the charity. Stephen, thank you.
Councillor Devonshire for supporting the Stroke Association, and what I wanted to do was just give you a couple of minutes so that when you go home you can alert your family and make sure that you know about stroke, because every year 100,000 people will have a stroke, and that doesn't just affect them, but it affects all their families. And there's about 1 million people in the country who are living with the consequences of a stroke. So it's there, it's large, and it's in the community. And if you talk to anybody, I talk to loads of people, and almost always they will have an uncle and auntie, a wife or a child who's had a stroke. People say to me, but stroke only affects older people. Well, that isn't true. Councillor Devonshire and I were talking on the phone earlier today, and he said he was surprised to discover that children have strokes. And we have an active programme for parents and families for children who have strokes. And in fact, you can have a stroke in the womb as a child, as a baby. So it does affect absolutely everybody. And the risk factors are very, very similar. The principal risk factor is age. Sadly, as we all get older, we are more likely to have a stroke. And and the same things in terms of heart disease and other things, looking after your health and fitness is a really good preventive way. So the first thing is, look after your family, look after your health, look after your weight, look after, think about what you eat. I think the second thing I wanted to take away is if somebody's having a stroke, time is brain. Time is absolutely crucial to get somebody to a stroke unit. So you may or may not know that every February we run a huge campaign with the Department of Health called the FAST campaign, help people recognise a stroke. So if you see somebody and their face is drooping a little, if they're slurring their speech, if they're having trouble controlling their arms, these are key indicators that somebody is potentially having a stroke. And the thing you need to do is take action timely. If you are pretty confident, phone 999 and they will get taken to a stroke unit. If you have a question, phone 111 and consult with a clinician and make sure that they will make sure you get to a stroke unit. And the only other thing to say is don't just go to your nearest A&E, go to the nearest stroke unit, because those are the places where the clinicians are. So that can save the life or the life chances and the quality of life of somebody if you move fast. So I wanted you to do that. So 2 minutes on the Stroke Association. So we are the UK body, so we operate in all 4 countries of the UK. We promote research to improve treatments for and support for stroke survivors and rehabilitation. We also have over 700 stroke coordinators, and they're health coaches. So they work with families and make sure that when they come out of hospital, they are accessing the services, because stroke is a recovering condition. You lose your function, you lose the ability to speak, aphasia, you can lose the ability to do everyday things, but you can recover from that with the right support, the right encouragement, and some real determination. You can recover that. So that's what we do with the coordinators. And then the third thing is, if you're living with the consequences of a stroke, a lot of people do need support. And so we mobilize the community to help support them. And there are thousands of stroke clubs out there. In my town in Bishop Stortford, I know there are 8 stroke clubs we're involved with, other than the aphasia group. So if you scratch beneath the surface of any town, there'll be a stroke group. And they are fantastic resources. So that's all I really wanted to say. So just remind your family of FAST, face, arm, speech, time. And you potentially will save somebody's life or their quality of life, and the devastation of a stroke. So thank you ever so much, Councillor Devonshire, for supporting us. Both national charities, we entirely depend on fundraising, and people like yourself raising funds for you. Local stroke clubs also depend on those, so do support them as well. And thank you ever so much for your interest in stroke.
Lovely, thank you, Stephen. You can stay around if you want, or if you want, you can leave the meeting now. Thank you very much for coming along and giving us that speech. Thank you. Immediately after this meeting, there will be some wine and soft drinks downstairs, which I hope you'll be able to join me for. There's one other thing I want to do before I finish my announcements, and that is that one of our councillors, Jeff Jones, as you probably already know, has recently been out to Ukraine. And he has asked me to give him just a few minutes just to give a very short presentation to you all about his trip over there. So over to you, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you very much, and congratulations, Chairman, on your appointment as our Chairman for the ensuing year, and your very able Deputy, of course, Councillor Bolton. So many congratulations. But yeah, thank you for giving me the time. As you are probably aware, I have been using our Bundyford community minibus for humanitarian aid trips to Ukraine, and I've just come back from the second trip. I think I reported on the first one, which was successful, and we learnt a lot on the first trip. And the second trip, I was contacted by a company via actually one of our previous councillors in Bishop Stortford, Colin Woodward. He put me in touch with a company called Care by Us, who wanted to donate some medical supplies in terms of PPE equipment that they wanted to donate to Ukraine. So I contacted them, and I was very happy to transport that out to Ukraine. This time I was loaned a trailer, a horse box trailer for the minibus, which we found really useful because we completely filled it with the donated aid from the company in Bishop Stortford, as well as further pet supplies from a local charity in Buntingford that we wanted to take out to a charity on the Polish-Ukraine, an animal charity on the Polish-Ukraine border. So we completely filled the trailer. It was extremely useful. So this time we had 3 drivers this time. There was myself, obviously myself, Richard Hall, local Bundyford resident, who sort of got an expertise in logistics, so he was very useful. And the third member was another councillor, North Herts councillor, Adam Compton. So he's also a host for Ukrainian families. So he was keen to come on the trip, and yeah, off we went. Basically, took us 3 days. It's quite an arduous journey, but you know, at the end of it, extremely worthwhile. We headed where we did last time to an area on the Polish and Ukraine border. And apologies to John Bermitz, my pronunciation of Polish towns is absolutely atrocious. But it's a place. It's extremely difficult to pronounce. A place called, well, I call it Premish anyway, on the Ukraine border, probably about 18 miles from Lviv. And so we'd been there on the previous trip, which I think, as I mentioned before, was a converted Tesco's, a huge Tesco's store that was, they'd taken out all the aisles and they'd kitted it out with camp beds, etc., for the refugees. A very pitiful sight with all these camp beds. And so this time we were keen to get the donated aid that we'd been given from residents, and of course for the medical aid, perhaps a little bit further this time. So we decided we would attempt to cross the border into Lviv. We did a lot of it. I did a lot of research, and it seemed to be pretty safe, that area now, as safe as it probably can be when you're entering a war zone. So yeah, we decided to cross the border, which is a pretty, I can tell you now, pretty arduous. It can take hours and it can take days, we were warned. Purely, sort of bureaucracy, etc. And you just got to be extremely patient. So yeah, we joined the queues to get across. We went to a remote area, actually, a place called Krosienko, which we were told was a sort of bit of a remote crossing point. We probably should be able to get across quicker, but it turned out, there was 50 or 60 cars in front of us. But we did flash the what I call my password and humanitarian aid. We got stickers all over the bus, and went in front of the queues, and the police thankfully did wave us through, so we had a little bit of a priority, but it still took hours and hours and hours. And the road eventually, after, I think we were there probably 3 or 4 hours, and eventually the road from there to Lviv, I'll never complain again to highways about potholes. I can tell you now, because I've seen some potholes that you would not believe. There are some beautiful stretches of the road, but of course the maintenance side of that during the war isn't happening. So it took its toll on the vehicle, that's for sure. I know that much, and the trailer. But yeah, we eventually got to Lviv, and I'd been in contact with a scout organisation actually that were organising. They had a distribution set up in Lviv, and we eventually driving into Lviv. You had a lot of sort of checkpoints, etc., where it was pretty obvious you were entering a war zone with the anti-tank equipment, etc. So yeah, that was pretty harrowing. But yeah, so we eventually found it. It was funny. Lviv, it quite surprised us. It seemed like normal life was carrying on there, and they're in the middle of a war. There was people, going to work. There was traffic jams, people commuting, deliveries, people going to school. It looked like children playing in playgrounds. Even it seemed pretty normal life. But yeah, so we got to the distribution centre and offloaded everything, and the guys there were really pleased to see the medical equipment, and they assured us that the very next day that medical equipment would be going off to hospital or hospitals in Ukraine. Yeah, sorry to drag this on, Ian. I can rabbit for hours about it, but anyway. So anyway, it was a successful trip. So we did get back. We got back to the centre where we then decided, because we had the minibus, it was now empty of supplies, and we didn't want to travel back empty. And at the humanitarian aid centre there, they asked us to take 4 ladies who needed to get to Belgium. So we took them with us and dropped them off at various homes there. And there was also the family that we'd heard had got their visas that were coming to Royston, and they they'd come from the pretty bad area in the east of Ukraine. It was a mother and child, 5-year-old child, boy, and we eventually met up with them in the sort of west of Poland and picked them up and brought them all the way back to Royston. So the fact that we could transport people back, it was really successful. But just one final, I'd like to thank, because I did put out an appeal. These trips are pretty expensive. It costs £1,000 alone just in fuel. So they are expensive, and we did get huge support from fellow councillors at the county council using their locality budget. And I especially want to thank Ben as well, who I know contributed. So thank you very much. And also town and parish councils helped us out a lot, and individuals. So if anybody wants to help, so I'm putting out a bit of an appeal, because we are going to do further trips. This war is not going to end soon, and you know, they need our help. And on the Bunford Town Council website, there is a donate page where you can make financial donations. So thank you for giving me the time, Ian, and thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Very worthwhile cause, I'm sure you'll agree. We're going to move on to the main business of the evening. Agenda item 6 is the minutes of the last meeting, which is on the 1st of March. There were actually 2 meetings on the 1st of March. There was an extraordinary one and an ordinary meeting. First of all, are there any amendments to these minutes? No? Okay. Can I have somebody to propose these minutes, please?
Yeah, I'm happy to propose both minutes.
Sorry, there is an amendment, subject to an amendment to reflect the record of attendance to show that Councillor Ben Crystal attended the extraordinary meeting of the council, and Councillor Linda Hazy is proposing that.
I'm happy to accept that amendment as well.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Rishi Fernando. So the minutes have been proposed and seconded. There is that one amendment, Ben Crystal's attendance. Can I have a show of hands for all those in favour of those minutes? Thank you. Is there anybody against? And any abstentions? No, thank you. That's carried. Right, next item is declarations of interest. There are no declarations of interest. Next item is petitions. There are no petitions. Next item is public. Oh, sorry.
Should we also be accepting minutes of the second meeting as well?
We're going to take, yeah, we'll take them on block. Is that okay? Is everybody okay with that?
There was a small amendment to the minutes of the second meeting.
Okay. Can you say what that is?
Yes, certainly. It refers on page 48 to the amendment proposing a £2.50 discount in the council tax, and it states, I equated that to 20 pence a week. It was in fact 20 pence a month.
Do I need to go back? Sorry, you need to vote again. Sorry. So with that further amendment, all those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you. Are there any against? And any abstentions? No, okay, thank you, that is carried. We've already been through the declarations of interest, petitions and public questions. No public questions have been submitted. So we're going to go on to item 10 in your agenda pack, which starts on, is the supplementary agenda pack, agenda number 1, pages 3 to 6. 7 questions have been submitted, but may I remind members that both the questioner and responding executive member must ensure that the question and the reply are succinct, because the total time allowed for all 7 questions is only going to be 15 minutes. Given the fact that we now publish the full response the day after this meeting, short verbal responses are to be encouraged so that we may keep to this time limit. Any remaining questions not dealt with in this time will be responded to in writing before the next ordinary meeting of this council. All responses will also be published on the website as soon as possible after this meeting. So we're going to take the questions as they were submitted. So the first question is Councillor Ben Crystal to ask his question of Councillor Graham McAndrew. Councillor Ben Crystal.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations, Chair and Vice Chair, on your appointments. Councillor McAndrew, it's clear East Herts Council needs to promote active travel. It's also clear, according to Highways at County, that in providing funds for active travel, the government looks extremely favourably on those districts and boroughs which have prepared local cycling and walking infrastructure plans, LCWIPs. Several authorities in Hertfordshire, including Stevenage and Broxbourne, have had LCWIPs for several years and have used these to develop ambitious active travel strategies. There's no mention of LCWIP in our East Herts Sustainability Action Plan. Why hasn't East Herts developed an LCWIP, and when will we have one?
Councillor McAndrew to answer that.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, may I congratulate you on becoming chairman?
Thank you.
Right, I would like to thank Councillor Crystal for his question and indeed his scrutiny of the Council's Sustainability Action Plan. The action plan is a living document, and I and officers are always open to observations and suggestions. While developing an East Herts local cycling and walking infrastructure plan, LCWIP, is not within the Council's Sustainability Action Plan, it is in the companion Hertfordshire Climate Change and Sustainability Partnership HCCSP Strategic Action Plan for Transport, which in fact East Herts Environmental Sustainability Coordinator led on developing for the partnership. The HCCSP Action Plan obliges all districts in Hertfordshire to work with the County Council on LCWIPs, with a progress report to the partnership required by the end of 2022, so as to build and monitor and maintain momentum. We understand that the County Council is taking the systematic area by area approach, and following discussions with them and in line with the government approach to partnership working, it has been proposed that the County Council should lead on the scheme for East Herts. Officers from East Herts will be actively engaged in the work and will oversee the progress of the project. We anticipate that the LCWIP development will commence in the summer this year and will be reported to the Executive on completion. It is also worth noting that Harlow Gilson Garden Town has an LCWIP that includes linkages to Gilson Village, and discussions regarding existing and proposed cycling and walking routes across the district are already underway. In conclusion, I'd like to reassure Councillor Crystal that the Council is working towards a comprehensive cycling and walking infrastructure plan, which will play a crucial role in helping promote greener travel options.
Thank you, Councillor McAndrew. Councillor Crystal, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Councillor McAndrew. I've got just a clarification point, if that's okay. I understand that the deadlines for the government active travel funds are kind of, the deadlines come up at the end of summer. So I presume we wouldn't hit this year. Is the aim then to hit the next year summer?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It will be done in parts, and yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. We're going to move on to question 2 now. Question 2 is also from Councillor Ben Crystal, also to Councillor Graham McAndrew. Councillor Ben Crystal, can you ask a question, please?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Councillor McAndrew. The excellent East Herts Sustainability Action Plan states that Action 3.10, incentivise the public to make more use of the council e-car pool, has been completed. It states the scheme has now been fully reopened to the public and promotion is now in place on our website. The link to the e-car page on our website is kind of towards the bottom of the highways and parking page. Can you tell us the change in the number of sign-ups that this information has led to, and whether you feel Action 3.10 should be repeated, given that we are now coming out of COVID?
Councillor McAndrew.
Okay, thank you. I would like to thank Councillor Crystal for his question. The Council's e-car club pilot scheme has been running for almost 3 years with 5 e-vehicles. it has been entirely funded with a grant from DEFRA. While remaining popular with staff, unfortunately, for much of the time, COVID guidelines require closure of the scheme to the public. Since the relaxation in COVID regulations, we have been able to publicise the scheme in a number of ways. Publicised use at weekends has been limited. However, there has been an average of around 10 bookings a month. Last month, we reduced the e-car pool from 5 to 2 cars in order to stretch the DEFRA pilot monies. However, the funding will completely run out by the end of May. To continue the scheme would cost the council £42,000 a year. Given the financial pressures the council is facing, I asked officers to develop a replacement permanent scheme within the council's means. To this end, officers have calculated that it is cost effective to switch the council's diesel vans to 5E vehicles. The order for these vehicles will be placed by the end of this month, although the level of demand for e-vehicles means we are facing delivery times of at least 4 months. We will look at whether it's possible to keep at least one of the remaining 2 e-cars on a week-to-week lease for a little longer. While the council's new e-vehicles will be used primarily by the council's environmental services officers and parking officers currently using diesel vehicles, whenever the vehicles are not in use by these officers, they will be available for other members of staff to use throughout the working week, thus replacing the DEFRA-funded e-car pool in many ways. With regard to the public access, we are of course eager to promote this, and officers are exploring the practicalities of how our new e-fleet could be made available outside of office hours. Until arrangements are put in place, I'm pleased to see that the market is responding to demand. Of note, a commercial operator now provides a hybrid car for hourly rental in Hertford, and officers already in discussion with a small number of private companies about developing more such schemes across the district. As we switch from our diesel fleet to e-vehicles, I'd like to point out that in many respects we are already ahead of the game. A national study by Smart Cities Connections conducted in February found that as many as 1 in 5, 19% of the 295 councils responding to the survey had no e-vehicle strategy planned whatsoever, with a further 37% having made plans but taken no action. I am thus very pleased that in the matter of a few months, our own Alabite small fleet will be all electric and added to this, and we have already attended demonstrations of e-waste collection vehicles to inform future decision making. So, may I reassure Councillor Crystal that once we have a new operating model for our e-fleet in place, as well as cutting the council's carbon footprint, we will most definitely be looking at how best to enable the e-vehicles wider availability to help our residents do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McAndrew. Councillor Ben Crystal, have you got a supplementary question?
Thanks, Chair. Thank you, Councillor McAndrew. No, I don't.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to the third question now. The third question is from Councillor Rishi Fernando, and it is to Councillor Jonathan Kay.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, congratulations to both you and Councillor Bolton, and good luck for the year ahead. Councillor Kay, as we welcome arrivals from Ukraine to East Herts through both the Family Visa Scheme and the Homes of Ukraine scheme, how can our constituents most appropriately support these new arrivals in settling into Hertfordshire?
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Fernando, for the question, and enjoy your year ahead, Chairman. I give it 4 or 5 months when your wife will turn around and says, "What, another dinner?" Surely not.
She's saying that already.
Councillor Fernando's question relates very much to what Councillor Jones has been talking about. We have indeed seen an outpouring of support from our local residents who wish to welcome and assist those arriving from Ukraine into East Herts. In Hertfordshire, a collaborative county response to the crisis in Ukraine has been going for several weeks now and is being led by the Hertfordshire Strategic Migration Steering Group. And this group draws representation from a wide range of local partners, including the County Council, District and Borough Councils, the NHS, the voluntary sector, and supports not only arrivals from Ukraine, but also small boat arrivals of asylum seekers and the mass migration waves from Afghanistan that we experienced last summer. A dedicated web page has been created with key information for arrivals from Ukraine and Hertfordshire residents who are hosting Ukrainian nationals as part of the Homes for Ukraine scheme. This can be found on Hertfordshire County Council's website or by searching Ukraine support in Hertfordshire. Information's been translated into both Ukrainian and Russian for ease. On behalf of the Strategic Migration Steering Group, Hertfordshire County Council are triaging all Ukraine-related inquiries via the email address, and this I think is a key address, ukrainesupport@hertfordshire.gov.uk. I think that's useful for all sorts of community groups to be able to be aware about. That's ukrainesupport@hertfordshire.gov.uk. And they're in direct contact with residents who have signed up to the Homes for Ukraine scheme. Constituents who wish to offer support of any kind or have any queries relating to our support for arrivals can contact the County Council officer directly via that address. The voluntary and community sector in East Hertfordshire and community mutual aid groups are also developing local responses to support sponsors and Ukrainian rivals. I'm pleased to see that the Volunteer and People Assistance Cell, that's VPAC, they're working across the county with these types of groups to help coordinate and provide information and ensure the voluntary and community sectors view and, well, all their views feed into the Strategic Migration Steering Group. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Councillor Kay. Councillor Fernando, do you have a supplementary question?
No, thank you for the in-depth response. No further question.
Okay, I think we're still within 15 minutes. Yeah, okay. The fourth question is from Councillor Norma Simons, and her question is to Councillor Peter Boylan. Councillor Simons.
Thank you, Chairman, and congratulations to both you and Councillor Bolton. I'm sure you'll make us proud in East Herts. We are all very aware of the significant impact COVID-19 has had upon individuals and families across the world. Can the executive member for neighbourhoods please explain how the pandemic has impacted on the numbers turning to the council for help with housing and how our performance compares with other councils in Hertfordshire?
Thank you. Councillor Peter Boylan, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and once again, congratulations to yourself and Councillor Bolton. I'd like to start by thanking Councillor Simons for prior notice of this question. The COVID pandemic has placed both new and intensified demands on the Council's housing service. Back in 2020, the government called on all councils to bring rough sleepers in from the streets. The council assisted 24 people in this way, of whom 17 were later helped into settled accommodation. As the focus on rough sleepers and those at risk of rough sleeping continues, the council has accommodated a further 23 individuals into settled accommodation since April 2021, who wouldn't otherwise have been housed under the existing national homelessness legislation. The numbers approaching the council when homeless or threatened with homelessness is increasing each quarter, with some 324 households turning to the council between January and March this year. The council works very hard to avert homelessness by providing tailored advice and interventions such as rent deposits. Whilst the 37 East Herts households that are in temporary accommodation under statutory homeless duties at the end of March can be considered too many, we in fact have the lowest number of households in temporary accommodation by far across Hertfordshire, both in terms of absolute numbers and numbers per 100,000 households. The council has benefited from its acquisition of the rectory in Stansted Abbots around a year ago, as this has doubled our direct provision of temporary accommodation rather than housing people in bed and breakfast accommodation. At the same time, the council gained government funding to create an additional 6 self-contained flats at the site specifically for those moving on from or at risk of rough sleeping. Allied to this, the housing service has taken on additional officers who work in partnership with a range of other statutory services who provide drug and alcohol support and recovery services, mental health support, as well as Job Centre Plus. I would also like to mention the council's work to assist people into tenancies provided by registered providers, also known as housing associations. We have a statutory duty to take applications and nominate households to vacant homes. To fulfil these duties, housing officers work with many other agencies, for example, SADA, that is the Survivors Against Domestic Abuse team, operated by Stevenage Borough Council, who support those fleeing domestic violence into a safe new home. Also, the council provides funding for specialist debt advice for housing applicants for the East Herts Citizen Advice Service. Citizens Advice share the council's drive to assist those in housing need and recently noted that East Herts has the 3rd largest housing register of any district in Hertfordshire. The figure stands at just over 2,200 households, although this number is relatively stable year on year and is not growing. East Herts has the 2nd highest population of all districts and boroughs in Hertfordshire after Dacorum, and so therefore relatively high levels of housing need are to be expected. That said, when the number of households on the housing register is expressed per 100,000 households, we in fact drop down to number 6 out of 10 in terms of the largest list out of the 10 districts. Interestingly, all 9 other districts in Hertfordshire have chosen to apply a length of residency qualification such that someone has to have lived in that district for at least 2 years and up to 10 years in the case of one district before they can even apply for social housing, except in the cases of homelessness, domestic abuse or armed forces personnel. East Herts Council puts no such barrier in the way of applying, and yet we are still in the lower half of Hertfordshire districts in terms of the numbers on the housing register per 100,000 households. And let me share one final interesting demonstration of how the council is addressing housing need. In the financial year 2021-22, the housing service made nominations to some 514 registered provider properties, over half of which, that is 260, were let at social rent levels. So in conclusion, I believe the council's approach to working with partners and housing people with a wide range of housing needs continues to be exemplary and something about which this council should be rightly proud. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Boylan. Councillor Simons, do you have a supplementary question?
No, I haven't. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for your response, Councillor Boylan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, we're still in within the 15 minutes. No, okay, that's the 15 minutes, unfortunately. So, as I said before, any remaining questions not dealt with within this time will be responded to in writing before the next ordinary meeting of this council, and all responses, including the ones you've already heard from, will be published on the website as soon as possible after this meeting. Thank you. Next agenda item is agenda item 11. It starts on page 67 of your agenda pack, and it is the executive report from the 8th of February, and the leader is presenting this report.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. And again, congratulations, Chairman, and also to Madam Vice Chairman. So I know you're going to be a dream team. I also would like to say thank you to Councillor Jones for the extraordinary effort and the innovation that he showed in the initiative that he took on board to drive to Ukraine twice and bring back some families so that they can feel safe. The other thing I would like to say is the race night, Chairman, is that all of us running around with sort of spoon and egg around the things at
If
Henry
you want
Moore?
to, you can.
Or is it going to be a sort of let's watch these horses race?
Yeah, it's monopoly money, and you
All right.
bet on horses, and the winner gets a bottle of champagne. or something like that.
Okay, that's all right then, that's fine. I would just like to present the executive report to you. There is just one item which needs to be approved by council, and that is agenda item 11A, which is East Herts housing strategy, which I would ask permission for Councillor Boylan to present, please, and to propose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Chairman. The draft housing strategy 2022 to 2027 before Council tonight is the culmination of a considerable amount of work conducted over the last 2 years. It does not shy away from addressing fundamental issues in the district, such as the need for social rent housing and the provision of energy efficient homes. Whilst there is no statutory requirement for the Council to produce a housing strategy, I believe that the extent and range of housing pressures in East Herts make it imperative to produce a new document now that the previous strategy has run its course. The priorities identified in this strategy have been based on statistical evidence from both national and local data sets, independent research conducted for the Council by the Housing Quality Network, comments from many organisations including parish councils, Hertfordshire County Council, East Herts Citizens Advice Service and the Hertfordshire Chamber of Commerce, and interviews with 8 key registered providers who develop and manage affordable homes in the district. In addition, the development of the strategy has benefited from the input and oversight of an 8-strong cross-party member working group, which met on 3 occasions to provide feedback and help shape the emerging priorities. I believe all this effort by members and officers alike has resulted in a detailed strategy which will ensure a coordinated approach to housing activity in East Herts, the effect of which will be to maximise available opportunities and resources to help meet our residents' housing needs and aspirations. The draft housing strategy is built on 4 clear evidence-based priorities, these being to, number 1, deliver more affordable homes. Number 2, enable a wider range of accommodation and support for our most vulnerable residents. Number 3, enable high quality housing for older people better suited to their needs. And 4, improve the sustainability and quality of homes. I'm very grateful to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee for their detailed consideration of the housing strategy at their meeting earlier this year. Members of the committee raised some points for my consideration, and I trust members can see that I have taken on board many of the committee's suggestions and have incorporated them into the draft strategy being considered tonight. Just as I do myself, I know members across this council wish to increase the availability of homes for social rent in the district. It is worth noting that the majority of affordable homes in this district are already let at social rent rather than affordable rent levels. However, the evidence suggests that more needs to be done, and this strategy supports that. I would like to point out that the strategy lists as its very first objective under the very first priority of deliver more affordable homes to increase the supply of new homes offered with social rents or affordable rents at or very near to 50% and 60% of market rents. I believe this leaves no doubt whatsoever over my and the executive's emphasis on providing housing with lower rents for our residents who are most at need. On another note, given the Council's climate change declaration, I'm particularly pleased to bring to members' attention the objectives within the strategy to promote the maintenance, insulation and energy efficiency of homes in all tenures and to promote the sustainable construction of new homes. Finally, I would like to make clear that I realise that the value of the housing strategy can only come when it is put into action. Therefore, I have asked officers to draft detailed action plans for the delivery of the 4 priorities outlined within the strategy, fully taking into account a wide range of views as they do so. I'm aware that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee will be looking at the action plan relating to the provision of social rent housing later this year, and I look forward to their observations and comments. Therefore, in conclusion, I propose that Council approves the East Herts Housing Strategy 2022 to 2027 as recommended by the Executive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boylan. That strategy has been proposed. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'm happy to second it.
Thank you. Councillor Norma Simons is seconding that. So we've had a proposer and a seconder. Does any member wish to comment or ask a question? Yes, Councillor Goldsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And firstly, may I congratulate you and your Vice Chairman on your appointments, and I do wish you all the best for your civic year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Then turning to the matter in hand, the housing strategy document, I and my group are very happy to see this. It has been a long time coming, but we do really welcome it. It's a very comprehensive document, and I know a lot of work has gone into it, and I thank the executive member for all that he has done on this, and also the housing officers and everybody concerned. A lot of work has gone into it, but yes, we do welcome it. We're very, very pleased to see it. It is comprehensive. You look at page 12 and the account of the house prices in East Herts, and on page 13 for the incomes in our district. And these are stark figures, and they really do show how very difficult it is for people to afford homes of any sort in our district. We're lucky to be in such a privileged district, but it does bring enormous problems for people on low to moderate incomes. It's really, really difficult for them to afford to rent or to buy homes. So the figures do speak for themselves. I'm delighted to see on page 23 the objectives, and as you have said, the first one is to increase the supply of new homes offered for social rents. I do think this is very important. I'm delighted to see it. So I'm also interested about, yes, reducing CO2 emissions. This is for the sustainability standards of the new houses. That is a very important factor as well. So overall, we do welcome this most warmly, and we do hope that work can start very soon on the actual practicalities of working to achieve these objectives. So thank you very much for that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do welcome this most warmly, and I'm very happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsmith. Yes, Councillor Redfern.
Thank you, and congratulations to our new chairman and vice chairman, our new chair and vice chair.
Thank you.
Yes, I would like to echo something of what Councillor Goldsmith said. I'm really pleased with the progress that's been made on this, and I'm particularly pleased by the last bullet point about sustainability, because I think though we have a lot of real problems for real people to face, we've always got to keep in mind climate change. So I think I'm really happy to receive this, and very pleasantly surprised. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Redfern. Are there any other members that wish to comment or ask a question? Yes.
Thank you, Chairman, and again, congratulations to you and Councillor Bolton on your respective appointments as Chairman and Vice Chair. I look forward to working with you in the year ahead. Now, so I was pleased to review this, or be one of the councillors reviewing this document at overview and scrutiny. Now, page 10 of the strategy, page 98 of the agenda pack, obviously states the 4 strategic priorities, and strategic priority 1 to deliver more affordable homes is very much welcomed. I'd just like the executive member to quickly please confirm that the strategic action plan for this priority, the action plan will focus on increasing the number of affordable homes for people to own, and not simply for rent, because we do have a growing private rental market. And I think we want to encourage home ownership. We want people to use the money they earn to pay off their own mortgage and build their wealth, build their stake in our local area, they shouldn't be using the money they earn to pay off somebody else's mortgage, namely a landlord. So could you please confirm that these will both be elements of the action plan, namely increasing the number of homes for people to own, not simply just homes for people to rent in the private sector? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Curtis. Are there any other members that wish to raise a comment or a question? Oh, Councillor Boylan, do you wish to respond to those points?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, Councillor Curtis, the focus of the housing strategy is specifically around social rented and affordable rented accommodation. However, we are very much aware in East Herts that in terms of the issue that you're raising around private landlords, which I think is the subject that you're referring to, is an issue, and it's not just an issue here in East Herts. The reality is we actually have more private rented accommodation in East Herts than we do that's run by our housing associations. I was interested to see that in the Queen's speech this week, there is a bill that looks at, and I've not seen the detail of it yet, but that will be interesting to see, and it may well be something that comes forward into action plans as a result of that bill, because I think it's clearly recognised nationally that there is an issue around private landlords. I'm not sure whether that answers your question in total, but I don't have the total answer for you.
Is that okay, Councillor Curtis?
Well, I sort of just very keen just to confirm that the strategy will focus on, or the action plan will focus on, increasing the number of homes, affordable homes that people can own. So increasing rates of home ownership rather than just the size of the private rental sector, be that with landlords, individual landlords, or be that with housing associations. So anything we see that comes out of the fantastic bill that's just been announced in the Queen's speech by government, any tools at our disposal for increasing rates of home ownership in the district, I would encourage the executive member to please ask officers to see how we can implement some of those tools locally. It's something we need to pursue. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you wish to respond?
Yeah, just to say that the housing strategy is not the only strategy that we have that looks at this subject. We do have a district plan which have figures in there as well and targets to meet.
Thank you. Are there any more questions or comments? Yes, Bob.
Thank you very much. Just apropos Councillor Curtis's point, might just be worth reminding everybody that as part of our planning policy setup, we have a 40% benchmark for affordable homes, which is, I think there's no one in the county that has a higher benchmark, and I believe that some districts have a lower benchmark. So that's part of our planning policy, 40% affordable homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Deary. Are there any more members wishing to raise a point? No? Okay. So there is only one item in the executive report on which there is a recommendation. The recommendation is on page 68. Do you want me to read it to you? The recommendation is that East Herts housing strategy from 2022 to 2027 be approved. Can I take a show of hands? All those in favour, please. All those against? And any abstentions? No, I think that's carried. That is carried, thank you. Right, item 12, review of the Constitution. This starts on page 135 of your agenda pack, and I want to invite the Head of Legal and Democratic Services, James Ellis, to present this report. James.
Thank you, Chairman. In accordance with the Council procedure rules, which require Council to review and update the Constitution if necessary, a comprehensive review of the Constitution has taken place over the course of the last year or so. The amendments arising from this exercise are recommended to Council for adoption this evening. Both an officer constitution review group and a member constitution review group was set up to complete a comprehensive review of the Council's constitution and identify and collate any changes that were brought forward. Details of who formed both those groups can be seen at paragraphs 2.3 and 2.4 of the report. The officer review group identified suggested amendments to the constitution and presented these changes to the member group for discussion and approval. The main updates are set out in paragraphs 2.8 to 2.22, shown as track changes in Appendix A, and all the recommended changes are described in Appendix B. The recommendation for council on page 135 is that the updates and consequential amendments to the constitution identified in the attached appendices be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Chairman, and may I add my congratulations to both you and to Councillor Bolton on your new appointments. I'd just like to add to what James Ellis has outlined. It's been quite a comprehensive and interesting exercise to review the Constitution in the way that we have, and I do believe we now have a Constitution that is more fit for purpose and will assist us as we move into the next civic year. It's not sort of a done and dusted. It's going to be a rolling exercise. There'll be further reviews for continual updating as and when required. So the committee will continue to meet over the next year and propose any further amendments as we go. I would like to take this opportunity to thank those officers who have been part of the officer working group, and in particular James Ellis and Katie Mogan, who have both provided helpful guidance throughout the process, and also thanks to my 5 colleagues on the committee who were sat with me on the working group. So, Chairman, we do have the one recommendation on page 135 I am pleased to move. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Bob Deering, thank you. Do you want to say something?
Well, just very briefly, I've been on the Constitution Working Group before. I thought this one worked extremely well. I'd echo Councillor Williamson's thanks to James and Katie, and also the cross-party working group I thought worked very well as well. It's very good. And congratulations to you and Rosemary.
Thank you. Right, that is proposed and seconded. Does any member wish to comment or ask a question? Yes, Councillor Dumont.
Thank you, Chair. And again, congratulations to the pair of you.
Thank you.
For a year ahead. Just looking on page 137. So I don't know who I'm addressing these questions to. Is it James or is it to Councillor Williamson? I'm not sure. Through the chair. Okay. So the questions are, it talks about on 210 on page 137, the Standards Committee is going to have, I think, 2 or 3, up to 3 town or parish councillors co-opted on. Given there's a lot in the district, I just wonder how they're going to be chosen or how they could apply for that, and also would they have a vote on any committee or are they observing? That's a question. The other bit, I think it's a good idea at 2.12 that the leader is able to speak at the beginning of the meetings, and it's good the meetings have been looked at so they're structured properly. I just wonder, given that we're running out of time for members' questions to be asked, did the 15 minutes get looked at all?
Okay, thank you. What I'll do is I'll get a load of questions, and then maybe if James wants to answer the whole lot on block. Councillor Goldspink.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's not so much questions as just comments. So shall I make comments now or wait till you finish the questions?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, I find this a very interesting document. Under 2.8, the change of the terminology to call the chairman a chair. I personally struggle with this because I've always thought that a chair was an inanimate object. So I do find it very, very difficult. I personally would much prefer chairperson because I do understand that the need to not discriminate between people, and that we're all searching for a neutral terminology. So I would prefer chairperson, but I know I'm a bit old-fashioned and out of date. And if everybody else prefers chair, well, I would go with it. But I ask, please, will you forgive me if I make a mistake sometimes and keep the habit of a lifetime? I do not mean any disrespect to anybody, so I will try, but I would prefer chairperson. The next one, 2.11, the creation of the Joint Information Communication Technology Committee. I do welcome this. I'm surprised we've not had one before. I do think it's important we should work closely with Stevenage, and I do welcome the formation of this joint committee. And I feel that then we would all have an opportunity to feed in some comments, because sometimes we do struggle with IT, and if our laptops are out of action over weekends and things like that, sometimes there have been difficulties. So I do welcome that. And then 2.15, this is overview and scrutiny, the suggestion that people who are not on the committee, members of the public who suggest things for overview and scrutiny to look at, that these people should be allowed to come to actually speak to the committee. I do think that is a very good idea. So yes, overall interesting, and I will accept it all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Goldspink. I haven't forgotten your question. Are there any? Yes, Councillor Simons. I can't see no thing.
Yeah, I too have problems with 2.8. I partially agree with Councillor Goldspink. I don't see why we have to change it to chair or chairperson. I don't see what's wrong with chairman or madam chairman, just because of other people do it. Now, I am old school, so it may just be me, but I think it's an inanimate object, as Councillor Goldspink said, whereas a chairman and a madam chairman are living creatures. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Chair. Well, like Councillor Simons, I'm old school, but I'm young old school. So I completely agree with the points raised. So if we could amend that, that'd be very useful. Just a very quick question, procedural question. How is the Constitution Working Group appointed? I think that good work's been done here. It's just, I'm just wondering what the procedure is for appointing this group, and you know, what sort of how you sort of, I imagine normally we appoint committees, etc., to report back to council. I'm just wondering what was done in this case, because you know I can't remember this ever coming to council before. So I'd like some clarity from the head of Legal and Democratic Services on that, please.
Okay, thank you. Can I go to James Ellis now to get some answers on those, and particularly on the chairman request, please?
Yeah, we'll start with the one that's obviously caught people's imagination the most, the chairman topic. In deciding that one, we did look at other local authorities, particularly ones in the immediate sort of location area to where we are. There does seem to be a move more generally towards a neutral term. The one that we have come across is chair. Indeed, I think a lot of people use chair without thinking when they address the chairman or chairperson. So we went with chair. As I said at the outset, this would have gone to members as well. So it has been to the member working group when we discussed this. If it is felt within this meeting that chair is not suitable for East Hearts, then that is surely something that we can take on board and factor into the changes to the constitution. Trying to remember what the other questions were. There were questions from Councillor Dumont. Oh, 15 minutes. As Councillor Williamson mentioned earlier, the work of the Constitution Review Working Groups is never ending. So the Constitution will never be a finished document. It's always evolving. I'm sure that topic can be looked at a future sort of review of the Constitution, and if it is felt that 15 minutes is too short or too long, whatever it might be, that can go to both the officer group and the member group, and views taken. And when future changes are made to the Constitution, if it is felt that there needs to be an extension to that time, then I'm sure it can come back to this meeting and members can say at that point. What was the other one? There was sorry. Oh, standards. Yes, the standards committee about the parish and town councillors. They would be non-voting members of the committee. We intend, if council feels that we have a standards committee after tonight's meeting, that we can open up it up to the towns and parishes to apply for those roles. So those town and parish councillors who feel that they want to be on the committee can register their interest, and a decision can be made further on as to which 3 get appointed. What was the other one that we had? Oh yes, how the officer review group and the member review group were created and appointed. I think it's important just to remember, Councillor Curtis, that it's not an official committee of the council. So there's no need for it to be politically balanced, and it's not a committee of the council in the same way as, say, the licensing committee or DMC might be. It's an informal working group. I believe for the member side, I think the group leaders were all invited to put forward people to come onto that group, and from the officer side, it was just myself. Well, as you saw in the report, who was on there. We felt that those officers were probably best placed to factor into the constitution. If there are any other officers that want to come onto the group, I'm sure they can put their names forward, and they would be considered for future inclusion if they wanted to. I think that's all the questions there.
Well, it's not really a question. It's I would very much like to defend the new title of chair or even chairperson, but not Madam Chair or Chairman. I think they're very outdated, and I'd like to strongly defend that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'll take them in the order I saw them. So, Councillor Williamson, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairperson.
Ian.
Yeah. Yeah, members probably won't be too surprised that when we discussed this within the working group, there were a variety of views, and it was difficult. In fact, I'm not even sure we did achieve a consensus. So it was put in as a recommendation to come to council for discussion. As I say, there were a variety of views, including that the term chairman has been used by this council for a long time. It's an established term, and that it isn't viewed by some that the word chairman is still a neutral term. It needn't cause any offence. So it'd be interesting to hear the views around the chamber, but I would be happy to propose an amendment to the recommendation that we would stick with chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Councillor Buckmaster.
Thank you, Chairman. I have no issue at all with amendments, but actually I think I have no issue with chair or chairperson in written documents. I think the important thing is that people understand what it is, and I think that's the case. But I think in terms of a live meeting like this, I think it's the prerogative of the chairperson to choose how they want to be addressed. So that would be my rule of thumb in terms of meetings like this. But in terms of written documents, I don't think it's a crucial issue we should be hung up on.
Thank you. Councillor Hazy.
Thank you. Well, it's always good when we get down to the sort of nitty gritty of what the important aspects of this council are. It's a good job we haven't got the budget on the agenda today. I think also, though, as an young older person, I was a very active, bra-burning feminist in my youth and still am. And to be quite honest, a chairman is a generic term. It is a term of respect. And I think that's the important thing, is that we use what we believe are terms of respect for those people who have a chair position. And if we want to call you anything else, Ian, then you do that. But I think, again, it is just demonstrating that we do respect you and what the Madam Vice Chairman is all about. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Yes.
Thank you. Just as a picky point, but as an ex-English tutor, English teacher, to chair is a verb which has nothing to do with the inanimate object. Therefore, chair could be a noun as well. There's no reason why it shouldn't be.
Okay, thank you. We have actually had a proposal from Councillor Williamson, so I need a seconder to retain the name of chairman. Thank you, Councillor Curtis. So we've got a proposer and a seconder. Right, we've got a proposer and a seconder to keep the name of chairman. Can I have a vote, please? I need a show of hands in favour of keeping that. Okay, thank you. All those against? Thank you. And are there any abstentions? I'll abstain. Okay, thank you. I think that means that the sorry. They need to agree the recommendation. Yes. Okay. Okay, so members, we need to go back to the recommendation. The recommendation is on page 135, and that recommendation is that the updates and consequential amendments to the Constitution identified in the attached appendices are approved, but with that one amendment. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So can we vote on that, please? All those in favour of that recommendation? Thank you. Anybody against? No? And any abstentions? No. Thank you. Right, that is carried. Thank you. Right, moving on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 13. It starts on page 391 of your agenda pack. And once again, I invite the Head of Legal and Democratic Services, James Ellis, to present this report. James, thank you.
Chairman, Council at its annual meeting is required to approve the decision-making arrangements for the discharge of functions. Under its constitution in May 2019, the Council appointed the leader of the Council for the life of the Council, that is until the next District Council elections in 2023. In terms of the appointment of members of the Executive, the Constitution provides that this is the responsibility of the leader of the Council once appointed, and the leader determines the size of the Executive, and she is advised that the size of the Executive proposed for the 2022-23 civic year will remain unchanged at 7 members plus the leader. The leader is also responsible for advising Council on the allocation of executive portfolio responsibilities. These are set out as Appendix B. The committees being proposed to be established for the coming civic year can be seen at paragraphs 2.1 of the report. In addition to these, if the formation of the Standards Committee and the Joint Information and Communication Technology is approved, the committees will be established with the terms of reference agreed. The Standards Committee will have 7 members, and the Information Communication Technology Joint Committee will have 6 members, 3 of these from East Herts. Details of joint committees can be found at paragraph 3 of the report. The political representation on the council is as is set out at paragraph 4. And as there has not been any elections at East Herts since the last annual council, the percentage of representation for each relevant group remains unchanged for the 2022-23 year. The council must appoint members to places on committees in accordance with each group's entitlement. Appendix A sets out the proposed membership, and members can also take note of the calendar of meetings for the 2022-23 civic year as set out at paragraph 5 of the report. The recommendations to council this evening can be found at pages 391 and 392 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Can I have a proposer, please? Yes, Councillor Williamson.
I'm very happy to propose recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Tony Stowe will second this proposal. Tony, do you want to say anything? No?
No, I'm quite happy with what I've seen in the documents. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you and the Vice Chair.
Thank you. Does any member wish to comment or ask a question? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. The under 5 calendar of meetings, will the meetings be entered into members' diaries electronically moving forward?
Yeah, can I ask James Ellis to answer that? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Williamson. Sorry, Councillor McAndrew. That will be included into the electronic diary. So you can take note now, but you don't need to sort of memorize them for the coming year. They will pop up on your screen.
Thank you. Does any other member wish to comment or ask a question? No, I can't see any. So I'd like to take these 5 recommendations on block, if that's okay with everybody. So the 5 recommendations are, there's a recommendation A on page 391. Do I read all these out? No, okay. And then recommendations B, C, D, and E are on the following page 392. So I'd like to take them on block. Can we have a show of hands for all those in favour, please? Thank you. All those against? And any abstentions? No, thank you. That is carried. Thank you. Right, the next agenda item is agenda item 14, which is the review of scheme of members' allowances 2022. This starts on page 405 of your agenda pack and goes on to 436. Once again, I'm going to ask the Head of Legal and Democratic Services to present this report. James Ellis, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The Council's independent remuneration panel has made recommendations for adoption of a scheme of allowances to be paid to members. The report below can be compiled was compiled by the panel, and I present this this evening on behalf of the panel. The panel conducted its review of members' allowances pursuant to the Local Authorities Members' Allowances Regulations 2003. The panel met 3 times on the 17th of February, the 3rd of March, and the 17th of March 2022. The panel's recommendations, which I don't intend to address individually, can be found as paragraphs 2.7 through to 2.24, with the panel's reasoning for making those proposals at paragraph 3. The recommendation to Council this evening can be found at pages 405 and 406 of the report pack. Thank you.
Thank you, James. So I'm going to go to Councillor Linda Hazy, the leader.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. I mean, first of all, I would like to thank the IRP panel for the diligence that they spent looking at this whole area. They've been doing it now for a number of years, and I know that they put in the thought and the care to actually come up with recommendations that they feel are fair and balanced. And I'd also like to thank Katie and Michelle for the support that they gave the IRP panel in actually getting things all together. I'd also like, if I may, Chairman, to come up with some comments on each of the recommendations, and these are for these are what we believe are the right way to go for all of these recommendations. So I will start with recommendation A, which is on 405. We believe that it is important that we do accept this 1% rise. I do recognise that many in this area are facing significant hardship, but we also need to recognise as a council the work that all councillors do and the value that we should put upon it. And also, with elections coming up, we want to make sure that new councillors coming in realise that they are valued and part and parcel of our community. It's not a great deal of money, and if people don't feel as though it is appropriate for them to take it, they don't have to, or they can give it directly to charity. But I do believe that it's important that we do accept this 1%. Last year we postponed it, or we deferred it, which was 1.75%. And historically, we have always accepted what the staff have been given, which again this year would have been at 1.75%. Do you want me to stop there, Chairman, or shall I just carry on and go through each of the
do you want to carry on through all those points? A to
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so B, this is for an increase in the SRA, the Special Responsibility Allowance for the Chairman of Development Management Committee. I do not believe we should accept this. I think that they do, all the chairs do a very good job, and the current remuneration for the split in the chair allowances, I believe, is correct. As goes for item C, which is an increase for the Vice Chairman. Again, I do not believe that this is a recommendation we should accept. Recommendation D is the implementation of an SRI of £50 to each member of the DMC committee. And we certainly do not accept this. It would come down to almost like an attendance allowance. I think it will be difficult to administer. So if you're a sub and you do all the work, but you don't actually sit on the committee, you wouldn't get the money. I think also that all members take their job very seriously, and we should not differentiate between any different committee members doing any of the particular jobs. And in fact, if you're a member of the DMC, you are expected to visit all the sites, and as such, you are then able to claim the petrol allowance back. Item E is a decrease in the SRA to the Chairman of Audit and Governance. Now, I think there's been a great misunderstanding here as to what the Standards Committee does and how it was fitting into the Audit and Governance. The governance aspect of this committee relates to the governance and the procedures and the structure of this council. It does not relate specifically to the standards which we expect all councillors to behave by. So therefore, actually, when you looked at the amount of work that the Audit and Governance Committee did in terms of its standards responsibility, it was actually minimal and only received reports and made no recommendations. So I believe that we should not accept this, and I believe that the Audit and Chairman position, the SRA should remain at what it is at the moment. I think the SRA for the proposed standards chairman, again, should not be 4,842. Now, this figure has been taken from the chair SRA for HR. The chair for that committee meets 4 times a year. The proposal, as we have all seen in the Constitution, is that the Standards Committee, not the subcommittees, we have to be careful here, the committee itself will only meet twice a year. So therefore, I am proposing that the SRA for the chair of the Standards Committee is 2,421. I think the other reports for G and H, we really welcome. I think it's very important that, again, we recognise that those with care responsibility, children, or whether it's a parent or any other aspect of caring, that they recognise that they can become members of this council and that they will receive recognition for the additional costs that they may have to incur by coming to council meetings. So I think, again, we do need this. I welcome the increases, but I think also what we do need to do is say to all our councillors, if you are entitled to claim this, please do. It is there to help you become and maintain and being a better councillor. So there are a number of issues there. I know that Katie has written them all out, and I believe we are able to vote on them en bloc. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hazy. Can I have that is a new proposal, obviously. Can I have a seconder for that proposal, please?
Chairman, may I second? I'm very happy to second the package as proposed by the leader, and then we'll listen to the debate.
Thank you, Councillor Ruffles. Does any member wish to comment or ask a question on this? Yes, Councillor Goldspink.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Yes, I hear what the leader has said. I had understood that we would have separate votes on all of the items here, or all the allowances. I and my group do support most of what our leader has suggested, but we are not happy with what has been suggested for A on the papers. So I would like to request that we can have a separate vote on that, please.
Okay, yeah. We can have a separate vote for A and then all the others on block. Is that what you're asking about? Yeah, okay, thank you. Councillor Buckmaster.
Thank you, Chairman. I note the comments of Councillor Goldspink, but I do want to speak in favour of the modest increase in the basic allowance. I agree with all of the amendments that the leader has stated earlier. Along with some of our neighbour councils, we have kept the basic allowance low. Many of them are similarly in the region of £5,000 to £6,000. Perhaps the exception is Stevenage, which I believe might be over 7,000. The really important thing for me is to ensure accessibility and diversity. And this is in line with the objectives in G&H, as we heard from the leader earlier. We want to be inclusive. Being a councillor is not just for the well-heeled or those of us with good occupational pensions or salaries from elsewhere. Being a good councillor does impact other activity, including economic activity, Chairman, and there's definitely an opportunity cost. We should be encouraging people from a much wider range of the population. Indeed, compared to what we have now, we are not socially diverse here. The allowance then should be there to prevent people from saying, I can't afford to be a councillor. So we in turn can't afford to let it be so insignificant over time that we end up being exclusive. The proposal is a very, very modest increase to suit the circumstances of the time, but it is a move in the right direction. So as mentioned, Chairman, I agree with all of the amendments as stated. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Buckmaster. Are there any other members wish to comment or ask a question? No? Okay, thank you. I mean, I'm happy to read out these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take A, we're going to vote for A on its own. So that is an increase of 1% from £5,375.04 to £428.79 in the basic allowance as shown at Appendix A. Can I have a vote in favour of that, please? Sorry.
We need to vote on them first as an amendment.
I'll do it. Oh, sorry, we've got to vote on the whole lot to start off with. Can I, yeah, Councillor Goldspink.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I would like to speak about this before we vote on it. Is that permitted?
Yeah.
So they need to vote on all four first. So
we can ask questions. Yeah, well, you can ask a question, then we're going to vote on these.
Oh, I just wanted to make a comment. Is that all right? Yeah. All right. Firstly, I would like to thank the independent panel for all their hard work. They give up their time. They're not paid for it, and I know they have taken their task very seriously. So I would like to express thanks on behalf of my group to them for all their work. And then I would like to explain why my group is not in favour of accepting this recommendation for the increase tonight. It was interesting that the remuneration panel did make the comment that they wanted, knew that we wanted to increase diversity in this council, and that some members of the public might be deterred from standing to be councillors because of financial worries. And I do think this whole thing should be looked at properly, because this small allowance, which we have at the moment, would really not go far enough, I think, to help people who are less well paid to be able to afford to be councillors. A much larger allowance would be needed to recompense them for maybe their loss of earnings and the loss of time which they would have to earn other earning opportunities. So I do think this thing does need to be looked at seriously, but now is not the right time to do that, and it's not the right time for us to be seen to be voting for an increase in our allowances. It sends the wrong message. There's a huge cost of living crisis at the moment, and we have voted last time that we wanted to do everything we could to help our residents in their financial difficulties, and awarding us this increase, all right, I know it's only £53 a year, but it sends the wrong message, and I do not think that we should accept this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have obviously had a proposal by Councillor Linda Hasey and seconded by Councillor Peter Ruffles. Are there any more comments before we vote on this? Yeah, Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Chair. Just a very quick question for me. Now, the scheme has the carers allowance and the childcare allowance. Now, previously for the carers allowance, I believe it was £9.50 an hour as the current amount payable, maximum payable, but a higher amount can be paid at the discretion of the leader. I don't know of sort of the situation, sort of circumstances where something higher than the maximum might be needed, but I'll be confident that £25 will cover that in the case of a councillor that had a dependent who had complex needs and thus require complex care. I just think that it might be good for those brackets to be included, that a higher amount can be paid if needed. I don't know if the head of Legal and Democratic Services knows that's possible or not, but if it is, I think it's something we should consider incorporating into the amendment that the leader has put forward.
Who wants to answer that? Councillor Linda Hazy.
If we have done it before, if I'm honest, I've never been asked to sign anything off, but I think if there are special circumstances, then I believe it is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've had a proposal, we've had a seconder. Councillor. Yeah, I'll ask James Ellis to clarify.
So we've had some amendments proposed, and the amendments have been proposed and seconded. So you'll be asked to vote on whether the amendments become the substantive motion, if you like. So that's the first lot of votes you'll need to do. You'll need to vote on whether the amendments that have been put forward are accepted. If they are accepted, they become the substantive matters that you are then voting on the second round of voting. If they are defeated, if they're not carried, then you will be asked to vote on the recommendations as originally put forward. So the first vote that you will need to take is to decide whether or not you accept the proposed amendments that have been proposed by Councillor Hazy, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, I want to move to the vote very quickly. Councillor Bell.
Can I have clarification on whether we're still going to vote on item A separately, like we requested earlier?
As point A isn't subject to an amendment, that won't feature in the first lot of voting. When we come to the substantive vote, secondly, you can vote for A separately and then the other en bloc.
Councillor Redfern, I do want to move to the vote, but Councillor Redfern, very quickly, please.
I'm sorry, I still don't quite know what we're voting on. Are we voting on not accepting any of these conditions, or are you talk about the amendments, but I've forgotten what the amendment
We're
was.
voting for the amendments. I mean, do you want me to read the amendments out? I'll read the amendments out. This is an increase of 1% from £5,375.04 to £5,428.79 in the basic allowance. No decrease in the chairman of audit and governance remuneration. A special responsibility allowance of £2,421 for the chairman of the proposed standards committee. That's half of what was proposed before. An increase from £10.15 per hour to £25 per hour in dependent carers allowance. And the final one is an increase from £9 per hour to £12.50 per hour in childcare allowance. That is what the proposal, and it has been seconded. So that's what we'll be voting on. Okay, can we move to the vote now? Yeah. So all those in favour of those amendments, please. Thank you. Thank you. Any against? And any abstentions? Okay. So that now becomes the substantive motion. Do we have to vote on that again? Okay. Right. Now we can vote on A independently and then the others. Is that right? Yeah. So we're gonna take a vote on A, which is the increase of 1%. All those in favour, please, of that increase. Yeah. Thank you. All those against. Okay. Thank you. And any abstentions? Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the other items, not A, but all the others together on block. Can I have all those in favour, please show their hands? Okay, thank you. All those against? And any abstentions, please? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you. Right, the next agenda item is agenda item 15, outside bodies updates reports. This starts on page 437 of your agenda pack, and I'm going to invite the leader of the council, Councillor Linda Hazy, to present this report, please.
These council meetings are normally the Jeff Williamson show, but we've managed to change that this time round. Anyway, no, I am very happy to propose this report, and I would like to thank everybody who has volunteered, because that's what you all have done, who sit on outside bodies. Hopefully you find them interesting, and I know that because of your extra work that you do put in for these, you do bring quite substantial experience and knowledge and use back to this council. So thank you.
Thank you. That's proposed. Yeah. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you. Councillor Alexander Curtis. Did you want to say anything? No? Okay. Does any member wish to comment or ask a question on this? No? Okay. Well, I want to say something, if you don't mind. All I want to say is, obviously, the authors of these reports, they've spent a lot of time putting them together. So I just ask you, when you go home, maybe you got 10 minutes spare, go through these reports and see what our outside body representatives get up to, because there's a lot of time being spent on these reports. Thank you. Can we, yeah, we need to vote on that. So members, could you raise your hands to indicate whether you are in favour of these reports? Okay. Any against? And any abstentions? Thank you. I think that's carried. Thank you. Right, the next agenda item is agenda item 16, which starts on page 513 of your agenda pack. And I would like to invite the chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, Councillor John Wiley, to present this report. Councillor Wiley.
Thank you, Chairman, and congratulations to you and Vice Chair. It gives me pleasure in moving the annual scrutiny report as tabled here. There is one recommendation. I won't spend any time going through it. Hopefully everyone's read it, and I know Mark or I will answer any questions if anyone has it.
Thank you. I believe Councillor Mark Pope will second this proposal.
Chairman,
congratulations
on your appointment, Councillor Bolton, and I'm delighted to second that resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any member wish to comment or ask a question? Yes, Councillor Goldspink.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I welcome this, and looking at it, it's quite striking how much work we've done over the last year. I was quite impressed. I realised we've done quite so much. I'd just like to make comments about page 13, page 12 and page 13 of the report. And we did make some comments and recommendations, and I hope that they will not just be put on a shelf and forgotten about. On page 12, we made some comments about how some people within East Hart are less confident or less able to use the digital services. And this was commenting on the council's digital by default proposals. And we did ask that particular note could be taken about the people who are not confident with doing everything online, and that provision should be made for them. So I hope that will be remembered. And then the other thing which I thought was particularly interesting and important was our shared waste service arrangement with us and the North Herts Council. And I'm surprised we've not had this before, but there is now to be, we recommended a working group, a cross-party working group with representatives from both councils to agree on a shared service contract. So I do hope that that can be done, because it seems to me it has been a great anomaly that we've been very separate, although we've shared some contract. So I do hope that this recommendation will not be lost. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Wiley, do you want to respond to that?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I can assure Councillor Goldspink that the cross-party working group will be going ahead, and certainly the digital by design with regards to those excluded is certainly coming back to the committee. So we are going to be keeping on top of all the concerns that mine has got.
Thank you. Are there any more questions or comments from any members? Yes, Councillor McAndrew.
Yeah, the joint working group will commence at the end of June, beginning of July.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay. So we're going to move to a vote on this. Members, could you raise your hands to indicate whether you're in favour of this annual scrutiny report? Thank you. Any against and any abstentions? No, I think that's unanimous. That is carried. Thank you very much. Right, the next agenda item is the review of the Council's grant priorities. This starts on page 531 of your agenda pack, and I invite the Executive Member for Communities, Councillor Jonathan Kay, to present this report.
Thank you, Chairman. The report in front of members tonight sets out the proposed updated priorities for 2022-2023. The new priorities are intentionally broader, encouraging applicants to think creatively about how they can deliver on our priorities in their neighbourhood. It's not proposed to change the community grants policy itself this year. Therefore, the Council will still make available small grants of £100 to £300 each to individuals of small groups, with larger grants up to £8,000 still on offer. The largest grants will be reserved for capital investment to match organisations' own resources. It's proposed that those wishing to bid for a community grant should focus on one or more of the following priorities in the year ahead: recovery from COVID, diversity and inclusiveness, mental and physical well-being, environmental sustainability, and the Queen's Platinum Jubilee coming up in a few weeks' time. As now, applications will be assessed more highly if they hit one or more of these triggers, that they deliver outcomes in a geographic area of relative deprivation, they support and involve vulnerable or isolated people, or they are from organisations that haven't applied before or who last applied more than 5 years ago. I made reference to the Queen's Jubilee that comes up very shortly. There were many excellent bids for these grants, and after a rigorous process where officers individually assessed applications and considered each of those applications on their own merit against agreed criteria, and then ranked applications against each other, we're proposing to allocate just over £9,000 to 45 charities, voluntary community organisations and individuals. We're proposing to fund 8 organisations for events in areas of disadvantages, totalling nearly £2,000. So there will be 6 national beacon lighting ceremonies in East Harts, 8 afternoon tea or garden parties or reminiscent style events, 13 village style fetes or indoor music events, 5 big lunches and community picnics, 11 street parties, a children's Jubilee art event, and a planting event to create a Jubilee trail. 34 of the 45 were proposing legacy events that ranged from planting trees, creating public art, setting up a new regular group, raising funds for a charity to recruit new volunteers. We consider that those bids that didn't propose a physical legacy, nonetheless had value in terms of the reminiscence and social connections being established or indeed re-established, and many of these were still creative and had unique cultural value. Chairman, I move the recommendation to approve the revised community grant priorities.
Thank you, Councillor Kay. Can I have a seconder for that proposal, please? Yes, Councillor Richard Townsend.
Thank you. Yes, I believe that's an excellent move forward in progressing, supporting multiple small organisations and encouraging people to do something that will make a difference in the longer term. In addition, we have to remember that many of these small grants and small ideas then grow into much larger things and bring in more volunteering. So I think on that count, it's very worthwhile, and I thank you for it.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend. We've had it proposed and seconded. Does any member wish to comment or ask a question? Yes, Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Chair. Very quick from me. I think this is fantastic, but I'm going to please ask the executive member to ensure that a list of successful applications for each ward is circulated to the members in question. I think that would be useful information for the members to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more comments or questions before we take a vote? Thank you. Right, there are two recommendations, A and B, on page 531 of your agenda pack. Members, could you raise your hands to indicate whether you are in favour of this report? Thank you. Any against? And any abstentions? No, I think that's unanimous, so that's carried. Thank you very much. Right, the next agenda item is motions on notice. We have two motions on notice, and both of these were carried over from the council meeting on the 1st of March. The first motion is 18A, which is on page 541 of your agenda pack, and it is about the Platinum Jubilee, and I invite Councillor Angela Alder to present her motion on notice. Angela.
Thank you, Chairman. This council recognises that this year marks the 70th anniversary of Her Majesty the Queen's accession to the throne. This council notes that Her Majesty the Queen is the first British monarch to celebrate a Platinum Jubilee, marking 70 years of service to the people of the United Kingdom, the realms, and the Commonwealth. This council resolves that the chairman of the council will write to Her Majesty the Queen to congratulate her on this significant achievement, and this council will do what it can to support local community events and activities to celebrate the Platinum Jubilee. And may I also add my congratulations, because everybody else seemed to be doing the same thing. But if we pass this resolution, and I very much hope that you will, it might be your first task is to write to Her Majesty with our congratulations too. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have a seconder for that proposal? Yes, Councillor Ruffles.
I certainly welcome Councillor Alder's initiative. Some time back,
Oh, sorry, Councillor Ruffles, can you turn your microphone on, please?
Well, I had. Chairman,
thank you.
I'll start again. Simply to say that I do welcome Councillor Alder's initiative, and that it's taken a little time to get to this council closer to the events that she had in mind. And I warmly and enthusiastically second her proposal.
Okay, thank you. Does any member wish to comment? Yes, Councillor Bell.
I would like to commend Councillor Alder for bringing this motion to council. I would like to particularly note my pleasure in point 2 of the motion, that we're looking at using the Jubilee to really bring communities together again after what has been a very difficult 2 years for many of them. And I'm sure many of our villages and towns are looking forward to being able to celebrate again with each other and rebuild those connections that might have been lost a bit as a result of the digital impact of the pandemic.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Goldspink.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Well, I also welcome this, and I'm very happy to support it. And I would echo what Councillor Bell has said about the importance of community events. And yes, and I hope that we will all be able to celebrate and enjoy these platinum, yes, celebrations.
Thank you, Councillor Goldspink. Any other members wish to comment or ask a question? No, okay. Yeah, okay, we're going to take this to the vote then. All those members in favour of this, I think that's unanimous, isn't it? Any against and any abstentions? No. Okay. Councillor Alder, I'll be very, very happy to write to Her Majesty the Queen and congratulate her on this significant achievement. Thank you. Thank you for bringing this motion. Thank you. I'm going to move to the second motion, which is it's on page 543 of your agenda pack, and it is called "No Confidence in the Prime Minister." I invite Councillor Chris Wilson to present his motion. Notice, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. So if I read the motion, then we'll establish a seconder and then I'll speak to the motion.
Okay.
Yeah. Council notes its severe disappointment in the Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Council further notes that the Prime Minister acted unlawfully, misled Parliament and lied to the residents of our country. Council adds that while the Prime Minister attended Downing Street parties, millions of people, including countless East Herts residents, obeyed the lockdown rules, often at huge personal cost. They missed funerals, cancelled weddings and said goodbye to loved ones on video calls, some on the very day that Number 10 illegally hosted a garden party. Council condemns the Prime Minister, whose disregard for his own rules itself represents a threat to the health of our nation, including residents of East Herts, as he failed to set an example for the country to follow. This is also a threat to the rule of law and the standing of democracies at all levels. For these reasons, he must resign. Council calls upon the Leader of the Council to write to Boris Johnson, stating that the Council has no confidence in his leadership and calls for him to resign. Council resolves that we no longer have confidence in the Prime Minister.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thank you. Councillor Joseph, do you want to say anything? Okay, thank you. Does any member have anything to comment or?
Sorry, could I just continue?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. So, I know some of you are thinking, and indeed what I've been accused of by a few people since news of the previously adjourned motion became known about in the local press, that this is a party political motion designed to score points and make you squirm. It's anything but that. This is about standards in public life, about politicians being valued and about service to the public and the ideals of democracy. By being elected, we have signed up to Nolan principles. The behaviour of the current Prime Minister, who is of course the most senior politician in the country, has breached these ideals. Let me briefly record exactly what our Prime Minister has done. There were images revealed of the Prime Minister consuming cheese and wine in his garden with colleagues and civil servants. He said it was work and not a party. 100 people were invited to an apparently social distance event and were asked to bring their own booze. The Prime Minister claimed he was there for 25 minutes and did not realise it was a party. There was then the party where the PM was given a cake, where he claimed he was ambushed. Subsequent to this, there was alleged to have been a gathering in Johnson's flat. He claimed there was no such party. But if there had been, then he is sure they followed the rules. There have also been leaving parties for staff where Johnson's claimed he was present just for a few minutes. Finally, there was a party where Johnson's staff had allegedly got drunk and bought suitcases full of alcohol.
Sorry, Councillor Wills. Can I just say how this is relevant to the district of East Hertfordshire, please? It's irrelevant to this district, I believe.
I'm establishing the facts of the case in terms of how he has betrayed the cause of democracy. But if you'd let me continue,
yeah. I'll let you continue, but can you make it relevant to this district council, please?
And I'd also note that when I was proposing this motion, it was established by the legal services that it was relevant to bring this motion. So yeah, that process has gone through already. So Johnson has denied parties happened, then said they did, but he didn't know there were parties, and then said, well, there were parties, they aren't relevant as there's a war on. Members, the Prime Minister has been fined for breaking the rules he set up himself, while residents of East Herts dutifully followed them, sometimes at great personal cost. He partied and his staff partied, and he lied about it. Meanwhile, many of our residents were lonely, many were depressed, and some missed funerals of loved ones. His failure to follow rules endangers us all. Why should people follow any future public health rules when he refuses to do so himself? We should all be looking to him, regardless of his political party, as an exemplar of how to behave as a public representative. Similarly, the public in East Herts, as much as anywhere else, looks to him to see what, as a profession, politicians are like, whatever our political party. Is there any one of you here who can say you haven't heard, you're all the same? From a resident. But whatever our party, we are not all the same. We don't all lie and avoid questions. We aren't all just interested in power and tribal games. And I implore you now, do not use the other politicians are like that too argument, as this adds to the problem. If a Lib Dem, Labour or Green politician has lied and broken the rules, they should go too. I welcome Sir Keir Starmer's statement yesterday on this matter. This is not a race to the bottom. The actions of Mr. Johnson obscure the good deeds and efforts undertaken in good faith by this council and our councillors. To show my lack of bias, let me state that while I disagree with many of the ideals and policies of the Conservative members here, I trust they act in the interests of the residents and believe they are doing the right thing. Lib Dem, Labour and Green councillors here do many good deeds and serve the community, but let me mention some acts and noble behaviours from Conservative members that at the moment are being obscured by Mr. Johnson and his undemocratic and dishonest acts. Some residents don't see that Councillor Jones, as we heard earlier, has gone for Ukraine to bring refugees to safety. They don't see the work of Councillor Hasey in helping and supporting the local efforts in combating COVID-19. And I'm sure neither Councillor Hasey or her Conservative colleagues had parties or broke rules during lockdown. They don't see the tireless work of Councillor Simons helping the vulnerable and homeless and a passion in doing so. They don't see the collegiate attitude of Councillor Boylan in trying to solve the affordable housing issues. They don't see Councillor Devonshire helping rural communities or Councillor Hollybon's efforts to help those suffering from respiratory illnesses. They don't see the work of any of us councillors. They see dishonest, game-playing people out for power, thanks to Mr. Johnson. So I implore you to send a message to our residents that we do represent them in an honourable way, and that we are not the same as Mr. Johnson. I ask you, for the sake of the offices we hold and of local democracy, if you are Conservative, stand with some of your colleagues and condemn Boris Johnson and his behaviour, which shames and endangers the integrity of the democratic process. Boris Johnson must resign.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any more comments or questions on this motion? Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, firstly, I think it's interesting that the proposer and seconder want us to resolve that we no longer have confidence in the Prime Minister. I never thought they had any confidence in the Prime Minister in the first place. So that was quite surprising to me to read. Everybody in this chamber was as frustrated as the next person when we heard the news regarding the Partygate, I believe is the term used. But ultimately, yes, of course, there's no doubt that things could have been done differently, and that's something the Prime Minister has admitted. But we are being asked tonight to say we no longer have confidence in the Prime Minister. I think we should only pass that motion if we would have confidence in an alternative. And in the time since this motion was submitted, we've learned about the situation up in Durham with Sir Keir Starmer, leader of the Labour Party. I'm not going to try and use that to excuse anything that may or may not have happened at Downing Street. But what I would say is that if we're going to not have confidence in the Prime Minister, we're going to have confidence in something else. And frankly, this Sir Keir Starmer with his lies about that event, about whether the deputy leader of the Labour Party is present, etc., the constantly shifting story every day there, to me, that alternative is certainly not better in terms of standard public life. In fact, I'd say it's worse. I mean, that guy spent how many years advocating for Corbyn to be Prime Minister, and now he has kicked him out and said he was unfit to be a Prime Minister. I mean, if we're talking about standards in public life, integrity in public life, I'm afraid the opposition parties need to look closer to home.
Councillor Curtis, can we bring this back to things that are relevant to this district council, East Hertfordshire?
Well, no, we can't, and that's the whole point, Chairman. I think that this is, I mean, this motion is about a national issue, but the fact is that stones are being thrown here from greenhouses. There's lots of these windows are glass for the buildings from which these stones are being thrown. And again, this is a point scoring motion. We all accept that mistakes were made. It's as clear, and the Prime Minister has rightly apologised for that. But the fact is, to be asked that we no longer have confidence in the Prime Minister, I'm voting against that, because I think there's a lot of good stuff the government is doing. I think that was shown in the Queen's speech this week, and the bills presented in that this week. So I think that's why this motion should be rejected today. Yes, and I don't think that has any bearing on the standards of anyone in this council. Frankly, I think that was a preposterous thing to suggest.
Thank you, Councillor Curtis. Councillor Redfern.
I would like to fully support Councillor Wilson. I do think it has a bearing on all of us when the public say politicians are all the same. Now, we're all politicians of a lower order here, and we are not all the same. We in this council, I believe, are all much better than Johnson. I'm sorry, but I think he has brought this country into disrepute around the world, and with our population in this country, I think it's appalling that these things have gone on, and appalling that brickbats are thrown by newspapers that are not true. You know, I'm sorry, but I really think Councillor Wilson has got a very good point, and I really support him, as you'd expect me to, but I honestly believe it from my heart that we should have a leader of our country who we can trust, who has integrity and who is competent, and he has none of those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Redfern. Councillor Goldspink.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Mr. Chairman, I would like to support this motion, and I think it is relevant to the residents of East Harts. These residents deserve to know what standards we as elected councillors find acceptable. They deserve to know what we think about the behaviour of some of other representatives who have been elected in this country. I and many other councillors expect our elected representatives to be people of honesty and integrity and to keep the rules. Sadly, Boris Johnson does not seem to have been able to keep these rules. In fact, since he became Prime Minister, he has illegally done many things which are wrong. He prorogued Parliament when he should not. That was found to be illegal. He has broken some of the COVID rules and regulations. Which,
Yeah, can we go back to local issues, please?
Right. All right. These are just indications of the standards of behaviour which he believes are acceptable, and which some of his MPs also seem to find acceptable. It's interesting that 2 previous prime ministers have publicly criticised him. So he is not upholding standards. And I would like it to be seen that many of the local councillors here representing East Harts do not accept the standards which Boris Johnson seems to find to be acceptable. I, in fact, have been appalled by some of his behaviour, and very often it makes me feel ashamed to be British. So I would like the residents of East Harts to know that some of the councillors on East Harts District Council do not approve and do not support his behaviour.
Thank you, Councillor Goldspink. Councillor Pearl, can you keep it to local issues though? We can't debate things that happen in Parliament. It's nothing to do with this council.
So I think the actions of Boris Johnson through breaking the law sets a very dangerous example to our residents that if he's not taking these rules seriously, how do we expect our own residents to take these rules seriously? In the event that we're in this situation again, where we might have to, I don't know, isolate if a more dangerous version of COVID re-emerges, or another pandemic indeed, we run the risk this time of residents turning around and saying, well, actually, no, Boris Johnson didn't follow the rules last time, so why should I follow them this time? And if we have people using Boris Johnson's precedent to make that decision, we run the risk of putting even more residents at risk through the failure to follow the rules as a result of the precedent set by the Prime Minister. So I think it's absolutely relevant to our residents, and that we shouldn't, you know, there's a rule at council level where if we don't pay council tax, we can't vote at council meetings. We shouldn't expect our elected officials should be made to follow the rules of the rest of us and should not be above the law.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Are there any more comments or questions? Because I want to move to the vote very quickly. Councillor Dumont.
Do I have to be very quick?
I wanted to move to the vote.
A point of order. Do I need to be very quick?
Second, you've reserved your right to speak, so this is your opportunity to speak to the motion that you seconded a moment ago, so it is slightly different.
Thank you for clarifying that. But I think a lot of people have got their backups here, haven't they? I don't think you need to, because I've not seen any evidence of anyone acting inappropriately here or letting their residents down. I was new to politics. I was new to what local councils did when I joined, and I've been massively surprised by how hardworking on both sides you guys have been. You know, and let's be honest, a lot of Tories get a lot of bad press. So I had a preconceived idea of what some of you guys would be like. That's not what I found at all. It's not. But we've mentioned standards a lot tonight, and our residents do look at us all in the same light. I don't think it is irrelevant to our district. You know, I'd take us back to when the deepest, darkest, we were on the Zoom meetings, when we had those council meetings. We had meetings with Jim McManus. You know, even if any of us had even thought during those meetings when we were sitting there that it would have been acceptable to break the rules, if anyone had brought that up, you know, the backlash from everyone would have been horrendous. But it wasn't even a question, as far as I was concerned, that a local member would break those rules. But we will still be seen in that light by people, and we will. So it beggars belief what's happened in Parliament, and I'm going to say it beggars belief in Downing Street, because I do think it did. I employ carers. I own a care company. I employ carers that deliver services to residents of East Herts. They went out, they put their lives on the line, and they didn't go for curry. They didn't go for a beer after work. None of them. I employ a huge amount of nurses that were out on the front line. One of them died. They weren't going for a drink after work. And when these rules came in, and there was a rule at Christmas, wasn't there? When Christmas was cancelled. My father-in-law came to the front door, and my residents, my neighbours have got ring doorbells. He wanted to come in and give Christmas presents to my kids. And I said, no, because if I get caught as a councillor, how bad is that going to look? That is wrong. I will set the wrong example. And he died a week later. So I do think this is relevant. And I do think you guys got an opportunity, because he's let you down. He's let all of you down, and you've all got an opportunity to make that heard.
Thank you, Councillor Dumont. I completely agree with you. I think every councillor in this chamber works hard and has integrity. Can we now move to a vote, please?
I get to reply to the comments that I personally made the motion.
Okay. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Just very quickly, just to make it clear that I believe that anyone who breaks the rules and the law of the land from any party should resign, to address Councillor Curtis's point. So if Keir Starmer becomes guilty, as he said, he will resign, and so should he. Secondly, this is about the confidence of the office of the Prime Minister, which we all need to have, regardless of party. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Is it okay to move to a vote now? Or are there any more comments or questions? No? Okay. And if I were to put them to the vote, we've had a proposer and a seconder. Can I ask all members whether you wish to vote in favour of this motion? Thank you. All those against this motion? And any abstentions? Thank you. Right, members, that concludes tonight's business. I declare the meeting closed at 9:29.